All right, chapter 9, The Cycle of Transmigration. The Mahayana, or great vehicle of Buddhism, was advanced as a compromise to the extreme austerities of the primitive faith. The founder of the sect is unknown, but the celebrated monk Nagarjuna is its most distinguished exponent and promulgator. Nagarjuna studied at the famous Nalanda University, the chief school of Buddhist theology of his time, the 2nd century AD. This patriarch declared that he had discovered the previously unknown writing of Gautama Buddha called the Paramita, which may be roughly interpreted as the method of arriving at the distant side of wisdom. Nagarjuna held the Buddha had concealed these traditions because the world in his day had not yet earned the right to receive such superior instruction. He had therefore entrusted a doctrine to the keeping of the Naga demigods or serpent kings, who, in turn, upon the dawn of a more enlightened era, gave it into the custody of Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna. The Mahayana system sorry, this one I'm going to stumble on like a son of a bitch. The Mahayana system softens the austere philosophic agnosticism of Buddha, clothing the simple truths to elaborate symbolism and evolving a tradition calculated to impress with its intricacies, intricacy and splendor, the mind of priest and layman alike. The Mahayana is termed the middle path, an approach to the state of nirvana broadened to admit those of every class and sect, even assuming the possibility of those not belonging to the holy orders achieving to the highest or Buddha state. It would not be erroneous to say that the tenets expounded by Narayana turned Buddhism from a philosophy to a religion. He was a sort of Oriental St. Paul who elevated words above works so that salvation became more or less a matter of orthodoxy rather than integrity. On the other hand, it would be unfair not to emphasize the high order of Nagarjuna's metaphysical speculations. He created out of the moralism of Sakyamuni a complex transcendentalism which shows a strange blending of Brahmic and Buddhistic interests. It is evident that Gautama Buddha built his philosophy upon the foundation of the Brahman Vedas and Puranas. The major deviation is in the matter of the gods who, in the hold on. Bingo. Buddhist system lose their creative attributes and become the servants of law rather than arbitrary despots. The Mahayana school appealed to the highly cultivated imagination of the Easterner. He was accustomed to view the universe as a battlefield of gods and demons, and hence found no difficulty in visualizing three-faced Brahmas or seven-headed Nagas. Nagarjuna converted all the lokas and talas together with the creatures inhabiting them to the Buddhistic way of thinking. So the old system continued under new management. What does this say? In case you can't read that, this is the Bhava Chakra, the wheel of transmigratory existence. Oh my God, the wheel of transmigratory existence reproduced from the Journal of the Buddhist Text Society of India. Looks pretty good. All right. The Hinayana, or the little vehicle, the imperfect way, as it came to be called by comparison, could bring but a small number of mankind to perfection. The purely philosophic aspects of Gautama Buddha's teaching could no more be expected to attract the rank and file of the Orient than could the metaphysical speculations of Plato intrigue the great proletarian class of the West. Most men think with their hands, contemplate with their eyes, and venerate with their lips. The Mahayana school turned northward to find its stronghold amid the snow-capped peaks of Tibet, and the more severe and simple Hinayana school turned southward to meditate amid the gently swaying banyans of Ceylon. No clear line of demarcation, however, can be drawn as between northern and southern Buddhism, as each division has been more or less tinctured with the attitudes of the other. The pundit Hariprasad Kastri has analyzed the difference between the two schools in substance as follows. The Hinayana commences the practice of all meritorious acts for the control, for the peace, and for the extinction, absorption of their own souls. This is not the noblest end to which a high-spirited Bodhisattva should strive. He should not only desire to place himself in truth, but should also strive to place all other sentient beings in truth. Thus, the Hinayana seeks achievement for self alone, and the Mahayana for self only, that is, that it may lead to serve others. The pundit continues, when a man knows everything, he knows the miseries of the world and, therefore, cannot enter nirvana without stretching a helping hand to the suffering millions all around him. While secure in his own prospect of emancipation, he delays accepting it for the good of others. There have been many Buddhists who, by their preaching, emancipate, and will emancipate innumerable sentient beings, but none of these stand as high as Avalokiteshvara, Avalokiteshvara, who has vowed not to enter the blissful region while there is a single sentient being unemancipated. The Mahayana school, therefore, regards accomplishment per se as a selfish and unworthy motive for action, accusing the Hinayana of lack of idealism. The Hinayana, in turn, accuses the Mahayana sect of having departed from the more austere virtues to the confusion of issue and the worship of chimeras. The Buddhism of Tibet is also further adulterated by the tantric cults. Tantrism sprang from the Shivan worshippers and is responsible for the highly complicated pantheon of Lamism, especially in regards to the great number of demons incorporated therein. Tantrism also clouded the issues by assigning to each of the various celestial entities as Sakti, or female counterpart. It is not improbable that the worship of Shiva in India antedates both that of Brahma and Vishnu. Shiva belongs to the primitive pre-Vedic folklore of India, even as the Scandinavia, the god of Thor, or the Thunderer, was far older than the pantheon led by Odin, of which he later became a part. Before the advent of Buddhism, Tibet was a cannibalistic country, the people worshipping in the most primitive and barbaric fashion divinities no better than demons and propitiating them with infernal necromancies and human sacrifice. This old faith is now referred to as the Bon. Although it has almost ceased as a separate institution, it still survives as a more or less degraded element in trans-Himalayan Buddhism. The Black Hat Lamas in particular, as well as sorcerers of all classes, still mingle Bon sorcery with their Buddhistic magic. This also probably accounts to some degree, at least, for the streak of cruelty in itself utterly un-Buddhistic, which persists among the less educated followers of Lamanism. Many of the lamasseries of Little Tibet and Mongolia Mongolia are hotbeds of Dugpus, sorcerers of the left-hand path, who control the elemental spirits and practice demonology. In the north, therefore, we see the simple moralisms of Gautama Buddha involved in the complex ceremonialism. The books containing the sutras of enlightenment now lie on the altars with a wand fashioned from human thigh bone on the one side and prayer wheel inlaid with beans on the other. To those who find difficulty in discerning true values, the tantric confusion, now called Lamanism, would appear utterly hopeless. All right, now what's this say? Key to the departments of the Wheel of Life. Reproduction from Dr. Austin Waddell's rare work, The Buddhism of Tibet. Stupidity, lust, anger. Cool. Anyways, hopeless. There is, however, a magnificent order beneath the chaos. Not altogether evident at first, there is in it a wholeness great enough to enclose the discord. The doctrines of Tibet are unspeakably rich in metaphysical and philosophical varieties, while the Arhats and Mahatamas have, for the most part, deserted the temples of Lamism. Sages still gather there, whose wisdom is the hope of the world. The inscrutable Lama, as he sits spinning his wheel or saying the well-worn beads of his rosary, has one metaphysical finger on the pulse of the world. Occidentals, with all their worldly wisdom, could make neither head nor tail of the thoughts moving behind the wrinkled Mongolian continents. Yet the old man has a private wire. From the infinite he senses aspects of universal law wholly beyond the comprehension of the money-grabbing multitude. Hold on. Okay. All right, I'm going to let it stay. Yeah. Before undertaking a detailed study of the Buddhist Wheel of Life, it is necessary to establish the substance and nature and the identity, though ever changing in its condition and state. I'll go here with this. Is unchanging in its intrinsic being. To understand transmigration, or the Stavic movement of Buddhism, is indeed to understand its greatest doctrine, a fabric which has been reared to the astonishment of all who have sought to learn its intricate architecture, its fine moldings, or its delicate workmanship. See the Journal of the Buddhist Text Society of India. What then is a stava? And what is the Stavic movement? A stava is a conscious being, entity which exists from all time to all time, being in every sense utterly immortal until it enters nirvana, where it is merged in eternity. A stava moves from one state to another. That's STTVA. But must always be in some state. These motions or movements of the stava are termed transmigrations, in that they do not constitute a passing from body out of body, but rather a continuous passing from one body to another. All animate creatures are primarily stavas, in that the stava is the real substance of their animation, and all creatures are bound together by this common stavic relationship. Recognizing that the experiences of life exist only through these relationships, the enlightened sanctify such relationships, seeing in such being kindred entities, co-eternal with themselves. The stava then is the subject of transmigration, even as nirvana is the object. The Mahayana school, writes Sri Sarat Chandra Das, teaches that neither spirit nor substance nor law nor organized life is self-created. All such phenomena are in mutual relation and exist only by virtue of such relationship. explaining how things which seem to have an actual existence have only a relative one. This learned author uses the example of a house. What is a house, he asks. Is it the door, the roof, the pillar, or is it the sum of them? He answers his own question by saying that it is neither the parts separately nor the parts together, for house is simply a name to signify the relation of these parts. Sri Sarat Chandra Das arrives at the following conclusion. Consistent with this doctrine, Buddhists do not believe in the existence of a creator, so there can be no creation. According to them, the world has existed from eternity, the living beings in it also existing from eternity, and so spirit and substance are co-eternal. The invisible spirit, like absolute matter or atom, cannot cease to exist. Their quantity cannot be diminished or increased. It follows that as nothing can be added to or taken from, then all nothing, then all forms, let me say it again. It follows that as nothing can be added or to or taken from, then all forms are merely relationships of eternal principles. Nothing which is real can be annihilated, nor can anything which is unreal be rendered permanent. Life, then, in all its aspects, is simply the stava, or self, moving through spheres of relationships, not selves as being in substance unreal, and wisdom lies in the realization of this supreme truth. Hold on. There's another picture, but I don't know when to go to it. I'm going to go to it now. Here, let me tell you about that one. That is the Bhava Chakra. It's all set. This one, kind of small, can't get big. That, it says, is the life of Padma Sambhava, leaf of the Tibetan manuscript concerned with the introduction of Buddhism into Tibet. Where was I? Object, life, self. Okay. We can now turn to a specific discussion of the Bhava Chakra. I guess I think I did it right. No, that would be this one. This is all freeform. I don't care. I'll keep that up until they mention Sambhava. Okay, cool. Now we can turn to a specific discussion of the Bhava Chakra, or the wheel of transmutatory existence. The two examples published with this essay show the wheel in both a square as well as a round form. The circular chart is from the frescoes of the Tashiding Monastery at Sikkim and was published by Dr. Waddell in the Buddhism of Tibet. The square drawing was obtained from Lhasa and belongs to the Yellow Cap School. It was published in Volume 3 of the Journal of Buddhist Text Society of India. We are also reproducing Dr. Waddell's key to the circular chakra as a valuable commentary to the material involved. In both cases, the wheel is held by a horrible red monster called Dagzin in Tibetan. This figure represents to the Mahayana mind the horror of egoism, of the most deplorable state of selfishness. The wheel of birth and death is supported by egoism, by belief in the reality of illusionary things. Altruism is the release from egoism. It is the destroyer of the monster who supports the illusion. It is another form of the statement that he who saves his life shall lose it, and he who loses it for the sake of righteousness shall find it again. Belief in matter binds man to matter. Belief in the reality of phenomenal experience binds him to the phenomenal world. The spheres of the Bodhisattvas and Buddhas are not included in this wheel because they are outside the boundary of egoism. They live not for themselves, but for others, and in departing from their personal interests, they depart also from the sphere of misery and destruction. It would be natural to ask what makes the wheel go round, or possibly more correctly, what makes the stava go round the wheel? The answer is karma. All beings, or stavas, are continually creating karma. In other words, they exist in action, and action presupposes consequence. Consequence, in turn, engenders consequences, and the Nidanas, Nidanas, and the Nidanas, or consequences of action, are established. An animate sentient being, writes one author, in contradiction to an inanimate object, his reactions of doings called in Sanskrit karma, which are coexistent with it from eternity. Karma is, therefore, eternal and inseparable from the stava or the stavic existence. Karma has been interpreted as fate or destiny, but these terms generally imply some providential agency beyond human control. Karma is the inevitable reaction of action. Its substance is the merits and demerits of the life. Walt Whitman indulged in Buddhic fatalism when he said, "That which is my own shall know my face." Karma then moves the stava upon the wheel, changing the environment to meet the merit of the act. Karma may be good or evil, or a combination of both. It generally manifests in the latter confused state, where contradictory impulses result in the discord of confusion of early life. When one who has achieved the dignity of Bodhisattva or enlightened being has by thought and action exhausted all bad karma and has through realization come to a state wherein he ceases to accumulate the causes of misery, he is designated a Buddha. In such a one, all evil has ceased to cause a reaction, and he is said to step down from or release his hold upon the spinning wheel of transmigration. With the exception of Buddha, all other stavas have complex karma, where good and evil are mixed up in varied proportions. Bad karma is the element of change in stava, while good karma is the element of purity. One contaminates and degrades the stava, and the other purifies and elevates. On account of their bad karma, stavas are changeable. Immortality, or more correctly, the indefinable term nirvana, lies therefore in the continual practice of good, and mortality in the perpetuation of error through unbalanced attitudes. Mixed karma causes the being or self to facilitate erratically from one state to another through thousands of lives and millions of years, and to experience in these immense periods alternations of happiness and misery. The degree of happiness is measured by the intensity of the accumulated virtue, and conversely, the degree of misery by the intensity of the accumulated vice. By his revelation of the mysteries of mankind, Gautama Buddha gained for himself the title the Great Benefactor, as expressed in the Vinaya texts. Now I'm going here. Oh, and I did it right. Of all objects which proceed from a cause, the Tathagata has explained the cause, and he has explained their cessation also. This is the doctrine of the great Samana. In the Mahayana Dharma Chakra, here pictured, the central sections are divided into six evils. What? In the Mahayana Dharma Chakra, here pictured, the central sections are divided into six major compartments. These divisions represent the six possible states of conditions. I'm going back. Okay. These divisions represent the six possible states or conditions of phenomenal activity, and together constitute the Samara Chakra, or the wheel of worldly existence. In reality, they are the domains of the six states of karma. A sattva, or being, must continually be in one of these six states until, through Buddhahood, it is liberated from its migrations. As the Platonists might say that a thing must always be in a place, so the Buddhists affirm that a being must always be in a state, the nature and substance of this state being determined by karma. Two planes are omitted from these diagrams, one of which consists of those elemental forces which have not yet developed a stavik, or conscious being, the other the abode of the enlightened, where those dwell who are completely emancipated from the wheel of birth and death. I'm going to pause there because it wants me to go through these. I'm going here. I'm going there. Sure. I got an idea. All right. Karma is ever building bodies in the 6 compartments of the wheel, which should be regarded as planes of life. In reality, the 6 planetary continents, which emerge from the central sun, or the 6 bodies through which consciousness passes on its road to perfection, the stava must pass from one of these bodies to another until all evil karma has been expiated. As in Egypt, Typhon swallows those who are found wanting in the ceremonial of the weighing of the soul. So in Tibet, the Dagzin monster swallows up and immerses in various states of matter the stavas that have not achieved the Buddhistic tranquility. In both the square and circular diagrams, the inner space is divided horizontally into upper and lower sections. Together, these two constitute the samsara, or the circle of worldly influences. The upper and lower halves are devoted respectively to the illusions of happiness and the illusions of misery, being called Sagati and Durgati. These stavas, whose good karma promises them a favorable rebirth, expect to reside in the upper, or Sugati, hemisphere, while those of a deprived spirit will be confronted with the misfortunes of the infernal, or Durgati state. The 3 divisions of the Surgati state are called Suraloka, the abode of the gods, Asuraloka, the abode of the demigods, and Naraloka, the abode of men. In the square drawing, the sphere of the Naras, or human beings, is located in the in the central or highest part. Going back to him for a minute. The pictures are tough. It's not easy for me to follow. So I'm just going to do it, and I ain't going to tell you. The sphere of the gods, or devas, is upon the left, and that of the asaras, or demigods, upon the right. In the circular figure, the human sphere is at the left, that of the gods under Indra in the upper center, and that of the asaras, or titans, at the right. I don't even know. I'm just, yeah. And then I'm going to go here because it might even be that one. I don't know. It's not really clear, So I'm just going to let it be. In the interpretation of these 3 states, it should be borne in mind that the human state was regarded as more desirable than that of the gods or demigods. The highest good, other than nirvana, to which the Tibetan can look forward, is to be immediately reborn in the human state. For it is in the human state only that he can achieve Buddhahood. This, according to Sri Sarat Chandra Das, is the most desirable of all the states. The great benefit of being born in the man state is that in this state, if the good karma be sufficient and the will rightly directed, the way may be seen. The first ray of Buddha lights upon the stava, and he becomes a bodhisattva. Henceforward, he enjoys all the privileges of bodhisattva. He has undergone the great renunciation and ascends through the various stage of sainthood to the border of the worldly existence. Having renounced all, even good works, he attains merit by meditation. He has a knowledge of his past births, all the circumstances of which have been carefully noted in a diary. He is allowed to let his prayers and merits prevail for others, the less fortunate stavas in the other 5 states. At length, he passes beyond the bounds of worldly existence to become a Buddha and enjoy endless bliss in nirvana. Special attention should be given at this point to a little recognized element of Northern Buddhist metaphysics. As already intimated, Buddha reduced the status of the divinities until God ceased to possess really divine attributes, becoming merely vehicles for the merits of the transmigrating sattvas. Godhood, therefore, is but a reward for good karma and, far from being permanent, may be lost at any moment. The Buddhist monk fears to be incarnated as a god lest this circumstance prevent him from achieving Buddhahood. To be born in Suraloka is the reward of having earned by action terrestrial power and bliss. In this aspect, the gods are but symbols of various constructive ambitions, less, however, than the highest ambition, that of liberation. The Stava establishes those consequences which entitle it to a period of existence in Indra's heaven, and as karma draws the being to rebirth here, so it draws it to rebirth in the paradisical sphere, where it remains as long as the merits continue by which it was established there. When these merits become exhausted, or demerits destroy the karma which binds the Stava to the heaven worlds, the being falls like a plummet to some lower level to which the new karma has brought it. The position of the gods and duration of the period of their bliss are determined, as in the case of human beings, by the extent of their moral merits, that is to say, the merits they shewed when they lived as men on earth or in some sphere not heaven. Thus the wheel of life turns. Indra, Brahma, and others who were once gods in heaven may today be ordinary mortal men in exalted or in lowly sphere of life, and vice versa. The turn of the great wheel, which one day exalts men to gods in heaven and another brings down gods to be men on earth, explains two great truths, one of which is frequently lost sight of. We believe pretty generally with all scriptures what all scriptures teach, namely the divinity of man or the God upon earth, but we do not so generally believe in the often equally necessary truth, viz., the humanity of God. After the exhaustion of the merits which terminate his celestial bliss, he has to revert to his former position or to a worse state in this world. Therefore, it is foolish on the part of man to lay out so much of his merits in the wrong direction instead of utilizing the same to the right end, ensuring his attaining to the state of Bodhi or enlightenment. See Journal of the Buddhist Text Society of India. Got that? Good. All the departments of the wheel have opposite states. The lower have their opposites above, to which the merits of the stavas cause them to ascend. The higher also have their opposites in the lower, to which their demerits force them. There is no permanence in any of the 6 states, although existence in them may be extended over a vast period of time, and the happiness and misery may seem interminable. The stavic motion flows from one to the other without end. But the stava, when he sees the prospect of a happy life before him, which is good doings, karma, have secured for him, forgets the true secrets that underlie, the worldly existence, and holds firmly to the vanishing unrealities which plunge him into the sea of continual suffering. He should therefore not count much upon the pleasures of the heaven of Indra or the longevity of the Brahmaloka, which, however long it may appear, is nothing but less than a second in the ocean of eternity. For when the effects of his good deeds come to an end, he is sure suddenly to fall headlong into the state of Durgati, i.e., the bottomless perdition. While the stavas continue in this blessed through transient state of humanity, they should exert themselves both by action and meditation to apply the merits that have already been amassed by them till now, and are by now, where was I? And are still to their credit for the attainment of that state of spiritually enlightened existence called Buddhahood. in this world, health, wealth, power, etc., which constitute our happiness, are transient, lasting for a month, a year, or more. They delude us like the pleasures of a dream. Therefore, without aspiring to the state of bliss on earth or in heaven, we should, in this life, endeavor to get out of this sea of samsara and to possess those spiritual accomplishments and resources which are essential for the attainment of the most perfect state of supreme enlightenment. Yikes. Compiled from the Tibetan Buddhist works Snithing, Lamrim, Chenpo, and Pagsam Thisu. It's all right. Almost there. The human is the median state between pleasures of heaven and the miseries of hell. When the stava is in the infernal worlds, its power of discrimination and discernment are destroyed by the miseries of retributive karma, and while the stava is in the heavenly state, its perspective is quite as effectually ruined by the blissfulness of its state and the beautiful illusions which surround it. Human existence is a blending of all the lokas and conditions, whether joy or sorrow. Only in the human state, therefore, is the stava capable of rationally determining that which is the greatest good. Hence, the Bodhisattva must rise directly from the human state, and Narloka becomes the vestibule of nirvana. An interesting story is told that throws considerable light upon the heavenly state. There was once a very wise king named Mandhata, who earned so much good karma for himself that he reincarnated in Saraloka as the god Indra himself. Now there were several stavas who also reached such heights of achievement that 6 of them were likewise reborn as Indra. This demonstrates a very important doctrine, namely that the gods are not personalities but states of consciousness, and therefore more than one person may be of that state at the same time and consequently be that god. After a time, King Manhata began wishing that he was the only Indra. Some very bad karma resulted, and like a bankrupt in the hands of his creditors, he was ruined. His sattva relapsed into an infernal state where he had time to meditate upon the retribution wrought by the demerits of envy. Even heaven is not a place of security, and sattvas stay there only while they remain worthy of its bliss. The lower hemisphere of the great wheel of transmigration is likewise divided into 3 unfortunate states, of which the worst is Naraka, or hell. In both of the figures, this is located at the nadir of the wheel. On the circular diagram, Peti Yoni, or the ghost state, Tartarus, is to the left, and Titiyak Yoni of the animal state is to the right of this lowest hell. In the square figure, the animal world is on the left and the ghost state on the right. A stava whose demerits are too great to permit its rebirth in the upper hemisphere, but not great enough to warrant its commitment to the lowest hell, may temporarily exist in the sphere of ghosts as an elementary demon, hobgoblin, imp, or other invisible creature. Or it may take upon itself one of the animal forms of the Terek state. In both these spheres, there is a choice governed by karma, for some invisible creatures are of higher order than others, as some animals are of nobler order than the rest. The stava may be capable, through its efforts in these inferior conditions, of regaining its human estate in the not-too-remote future. Avchi, the deepest hell, is reserved for those whose infamies require the longest to erase. The figures in the various compartments of the wheel represent stavas enjoying the bliss or suffering from the agony of the karma has earned for them. There is an interesting correspondence which we cannot fail to note between the bhava chakra, as pictured in fragments. That's where that one's at. You know what? I'll go to it since it's taking so damn long. There you go. There is an interesting correspondence which we cannot fail to note between the bhava chakra as pictured and fragments of the Gnostic tradition. The Gnostics are generally admitted to have been in contact with the Orient. In the Gnostic fragments there appears a despotic creative agent, Aladabaoth, the demiurges of the world, and he locks the gates of heaven in an effort to prevent men escaping from the bondages to himself and his son's creations. Is not Aladabaoth the monster holding the wheel and the symbol of illusionary existence, and are not the six planes or states his offspring? For all the compartments of the wheel are generated from ignorance. The wheel is the mundane globe which all the initiates regarded as the sphere of illusion, escape from which the philosophic means constituted the greatest good. In the center of both the square and the circular diagrams are to be seen three creatures holding on to each other's tails and forming a sort of endless chain. These represent the motive power which keeps the great chakra rotating. The hog symbolizes stupidity and dove lust, and the serpent anger. These qualities are always opposed to the steadfastness and high principle through the expression of which nirvana is achieved. Thus the wheel continually turns upon this triple axis, for the world only exists as a reality for those who choose to accept it as much. It would be a mistake to view the wheels as intended to set forth literal teachings. The whole concept is purely metaphysical, dealing with the invisible and superphysical planes in their relationship to the physical universe. The Bhava chakra does not reveal places but conditions, and the small figures ornating the compartments are not intended to portray literal facts but to intimate the conditions of consciousness by which the well-being of the sattva is determined. It might not be amiss to insert at this point the formula of escape by which a sattva bound to one of the infernal spheres can hope for release therefrom. The forces which can contribute to the improvement in its condition are 4 in number. I don't know, but I'm going to go back here. When it has completed the karma by which it is bound to that loka, it will immediately depart therefrom into another state. Usually penance ensures that the sattva, leaving one of the infernal spheres, will ascend to a nobler state. 2. Under certain conditions, when the sattva does voluntary penance, it is released from the lower world by the expiration of the period which it has allotted for itself. 3. The sattva may be temporarily released from karma and given an opportunity for enlightenment by the prayers or intercession of the bodhisattva or perfect soul. 4. By the merits directed upon the sattva by others in the same state as itself. In other words, the love and devotion and gratitude of those whom we benefit become vital forces in our own redemption. As a border to both the square and circular wheels are the 12 nidhanas. These represent the concatenation of circumstances or causes from effects themselves in turn, and then engendering causes and moving inevitably from birth to death. The figures of the two charts differ somewhat as to detail, but the doctrine is identical in both cases. The doctrines of Nidhanas reveals the inevitability of consequences, causes flowing into effects, etc. Thus birth, which is the first nidanya, inevitably presages death, which is the 12th, and the causes of being follow each other in unbroken sequence from beginning to end, then on to the beginning again ad infinitum. The first nidanya, unconscious will, is called avadya and is typified by a blind man or ignorance. Is that him? I don't know. And is typified by a blind man or ignorance. In the human life cycle, it represents a sattva passing from death to rebirth. The second, Nadanya, conformations, is called Sansikara and is typified by a potter and his pots. In the human life cycle, it represents the sattva shaping the formless material of its mental and physical natures. The third, Nidanya, consciousness, is called Vijnana and is typified by the restlessness of a monkey. In the human life cycle, it represents the rise of consciousness experience, conscious experience. The fourth Nadanya, self-consciousness, is called Namarapa and is typified by an arc containing a man, woman, and animal. In the human life cycle, it represents the rise of individuality, the distinction between the self and not self. In the fifth Nadanya, sense surfaces and understanding, is called Chadayatana and is typified by an empty house containing doors and windows. In the human life cycle, it represents the dawning realization of the possession of sense surfaces and understanding with references to the outside world. The sixth Nadanya, contact, is called Sparasa and is typified by husband and wife embracing each other. In the human life cycle, it represents the existence of sense organs on the outer world. The seventh Nadanya, feeling, is called Vedanya and is typified by delusive pleasures and pain shown by an arrow entering a man's eye. In the human life cycle, it represents the development of mental and physical sensations. The eighth Nadanya, desire, is called Trishna and is typified by a man drinking wine and a woman holding a wine jug. In the human life cycle, it represents desire as the experience of pain and delusive pleasure. The ninth Nadanya, indulgence, is called Apadanya and is typified by a man collecting fruit in a basket. In the human life cycle, it represents the clinging to worldly wealth and greed. The 10th Nadanya, fuller life, is called Bhava and is typified by conception. Typified by conception. In the human life cycle, it represents temporal life in a fuller form as expressed through the obtaining of an heir. The 11th Nadanya, the birth of an heir, is called Jati and is typified by birth from the womb. In the human life cycle, it represents the maturity by birth of the heir or the fulfillment of responsibility through offering rebirth to another sattva. The 12th Nadanya, decay and death, is called Jaramaran and is typified by dead body being carried to the cemetery on the back of a coolie. In the human life cycle, it represents maturity leading to death and decay. After the 12 Nadanyas comes the first again, and so on indefinitely until the life of enlightenment takes the place of the householder's existence. In the square chakra, the two forms of life are represented by the figures in the central circle. Upon the left side, the figures rise to enlightenment, while on the right side, they descend into perdition. In concluding the description of the Bhava chakra, it should be noted that in each of the 6 states of illusionary existence is to be seen a figure of the Buddha, his body surrounded by a double nimbus. Out of his compassion, the Buddha manifests simultaneously in the 6 states of existence as thought found in the Christian Gospels, where Christ descends into hell to convert the demons. In every state, mercy and compassion are thus established, and through his forms in the different worlds, he who is perfected in virtue invites all sattvas to join him in the beatitude of liberation. Wow. How long was that? Not bad. It's like pulling teeth.